Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we're going into our fourth segment of the night, talking about the Oilers general manager, Ken Holland, stepping down. They just went on a cup run, and your general manager is stepping down. This was not out of the blue. His contract ran up, and we kind of all saw this coming because they haven't resigned him. Resigned him. But I am still very shocked here. I'll read some of the statements that he made as he did step down over the past 5 seasons as general manager. This is from a statement by the team on Thursday. Over the past 5 seasons as general manager, Ken has not only built the Edmonton Oilers into one of NHL's best teams, but he has also established a deeply rooted foundation of success and a culture of winning that will continue well into the future. Jackson said in a statement Thursday, "Thanks in large part for Ken's outstanding work, Edmonton has become a destination city for players around the National Hockey League." Holland's future with the Oilers had been in question for several months, only to have the speculation intensify throughout the team's playoff run. This was truly a shock. I don't think that there has been anything. I don't think that there's been anything that's come out from Ken Holland. Anything that he said about this matter. But I am really shocked. This is a general manager that took a team to the Stanley Cup Stanley Cup Finals, was one win away from getting a Stanley Cup, and now he steps down. He's out of contract, but I mean, he put together a winning team. I do have his trade history pulled up here, and we're gonna go through from 2019 the trades that he made when he stepped in. So his very first trade was he looked at the Milan Lucic contract and said, that can't happen. We can't be having that. So went out and traded Milan Lucic and a 3rd-round pick to the Calgary Flames for James Neal. Those two teams do not trade within each other, trade within themselves. So that one was a shock. And then immediately traded John Marino for a 6th-round pick. Got Mike Green for Kyle Brodziak. Traded Sam Gagner for Andres Athanasiou, who was a great forward for the Edmonton Oilers for a couple of years. They got Tyler Ennis for a 5th-round pick. That was a good defenseman for them for a few years. Moving on, they got the first piece for this for this Stanley Cup Finals core in Dmitry Kulikov. They gave up a 4th-round pick for Dmitry Kulikov, who became a bottom pairing defenseman for a Stanley Cup Finals team. So that's an impressive trade for the Edmonton Oilers. You got Duncan Keith from the Chicago Blackhawks in return in a trade with Caleb Jones. They traded back in the draft in 2021. Here's another piece for this Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup Final team. They got Warren Foegele for Ethan Bear. That's a fantastic trade for the Edmonton Oilers. Warren Foegele played a pivotal role on this team, on this Edmonton Oilers team for their top end, on their first line and second line in the games that they needed to win in the Stanley Cup Finals. So that's a fantastic trade for Ethan Bear, who's not even on the Carolina Hurricanes anymore. I misspoke earlier. I meant to say Brett Kulak they got, by the way. I said Dmitry Kulikov, who actually played for the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final. Moving forward, though, for the going into their next piece that they got for the Stanley Cup Finals, Matthias Ekholm, he got in February of 2023, pretty much trade deadline time in 2023. They were able to also re-sign Matthias Ekholm. They traded him. They got him in return for Tyson Barrie and a 1st-round pick, basically, to the Nashville Predators, who turned into Tanner Molendyk, who has still not broken through for the Nashville Predators. So we'll see how that trade really looks in a couple years' time with draft picks. That's kind of what you have to do. But right now, it looks like a fantastic deal for Edmonton Oilers because Matthias Ekholm was a top-pairing defender on their playoff team. So very impressive there. Moving forward now, you have this season in the 3-way trade that happened at the deadline. They got Sam Carrick and Adam Henrique, who both produced for them who both produced for them in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but Adam Henrique being a very key part of that Stanley Cup final, scoring a couple of very important goals in the Cup final there. Adam Henrique was a fantastic penalty killing guy as well, and I do believe that they have Adam Henrique for another year at least. Or no, Adam Henrique is a UFA this summer. I apologize. But the Edmonton Oilers didn't build this team through trades, but even in the trades that they made, it has helped to build the team. Getting Adam Henrique, getting Matthias Ekholm, getting Brett Kulak. It's pieces that they needed to make this run happen. They're depth pieces, but you don't want to go out and get this huge name in a trade. That doesn't ever really end well for the team getting the huge name. So the team built a lot through the draft, and a lot of the draft picks were done before Ken Holland's reign. However, since 2019, going out and get Dylan Holloway, who was a fantastic player for them. Going out, they signed Zach Hyman, who was a 50-goal scorer for them this season. That's a fantastic free agency signing. They got production out of Evan Bouchard. That wasn't a draft pick by Ken Holland, but they did put the coaching staff around him that developed him into the player that he is today. Stuart Skinner is a fantastic signing for Ken Holland. They also, I'm trying to just think off the top of my head because I don't have the lines pulled up right now. But Matthias Janmark was a fantastic piece for them this season, along with Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, and Draisaitl were before Ken Holland's reign, but the depth pieces around the team, of course, it is the McDavid, it is Draisaitl, it is Nugent Hopkins that are the big names for this team, but the depth pieces around them were really what got the job done in the Stanley Cup final in the big moments. It was Matthias Janmark that scored the only goal in the Game 7. It was Matthias Janmark that got the first goal in Game 4, if I'm not mistaken. I know McDavid getting 8 points in those two games helps a lot as well. However, Warren Foegele getting the goal from Leon Draisaitl in that Game 6 to open the scoring for the Edmonton Oilers. They put a team around, and Ken Holland put a team around to help build up the Edmonton Oilers. So Ken Holland now, what is the future looking like for Ken Holland? He is still in his 60s, if I'm not mistaken, so he could definitely take over another franchise as a general manager. He was the general manager for the Red Wings and the Tampa Bay Lightning, if I'm not mistaken. Both not the best reigns. The Red Wings were really bad during his reign, and that wasn't really that was just the timeline of the Red Wings at that time. They were just looking, to get better, I would say. So I don't blame Ken Holland, but he did make some bad moves in Detroit, and he did also make some bad moves in Edmonton. As I'm gonna, I talk about the Darnell Nurse contract so often, and I'm gonna talk about it again. Darnell Nurse is a horrific contract, and the extension that they gave him is not good. Holland was the one that gave Nurse an 8-year, $74 million deal. That's $9.25 million per year. He's the 8th highest paid defenseman in the NHL, and he doesn't deserve the contract. And that's going to really hurt when they're trying to extend Leon Draisaitl, when they're trying to extend Evan Bouchard, and when they need to re-sign Conor McDavid in a couple years' time. Jack Campbell is another horrible contract. They were trying to sign Jacob Markstrom, but he decided to go with the New Jersey not the New Jersey Devils, the Calgary Flames. So they were kind of left in their backup option. So they go with Jack Campbell, a 5-year, $25 million deal that's still hurting them today. They're going to need to buy out Jack Campbell probably because he just is not producing for their team. He was not on their playoff roster as they decided to go with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard for the playoffs. And you also have the Zach Kassian debacle for the Edmonton Oilers. However, as I mentioned, Ken Holland did make really good moves. I talked about the bad, but I'm going to end it with the good. Zach Hyman, that might be one of the best free agent signings we've seen. 54 goals in a season is unlike anything that we've seen from Zach Hyman ever. He's on a 7-year, $38.5 million deal too, which is a pretty good contract for the Edmonton Oilers. Matthias Ekholm is a fantastic deal. He also was the one that re-signed Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to a very small deal. He locked him up at a $5.125 million cap hit, which Ryan Nugent-Hopkins definitely could get $6 or $7 million, maybe even. No, he wouldn't get 8, but like 7.25 isn't too far off for a first line winger that can put up 80 points in a season. At 5.125 is a very fantastic deal for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and he also got Chris Knobloch on that, who was a mastermind, really rejuvenating that franchise kind of from the ground that they started this season. They were 31st at one time this season. They decided to go with Chris Knobloch and really did turn it around. So Ken Holland is no longer the general manager for the Edmonton Oilers. This is going to be one of the most wanted and desired positions in all of hockey. They just went to a Stanley Cup final. You're taking over a core that is in win now mode, and as we saw this year, can definitely win now. You're also getting Conor McDavid. You get to watch Conor McDavid for 82 games. You kidding me? That's fantastic. So Ken Holland no longer the general manager. We'll see if he goes anywhere or if he just goes into retirement. That might be a likely choice as well. But that'll wrap it up for our fourth segment of the night. When I get back from my fourth and final break of the night, we will be talking about my live draft reaction as the first round is wrapping up.